For most of the NBA's existence, the all-time leading scorers were defined by specific shots they relied on heavily to fill up the box score. Wilt Chamberlain quickly moved into the top spot with his patented turnaround jumper off the glass, and it took Kareem Abdul-Jabbar 18 years to surpass that while relying heavily on the unparalleled skyhook. That record probably felt unbreakable, as it has stood for 39 years as a number of Hall of Famers took a run at the big fella, falling short time and again until now. When LeBron James began his rise to prominence, he was simply joining a long line of ultra-talented youngsters crowned the next big thing. Only with James, he not only lived up to the hype, he exceeded it. What's interesting is that LeBron didn't do it with a pet shot of his own. Sure, there was this left leg jump, right hand release, soft off the glass shot, and these days, he relies on this step back from three-point range quite a lot. But for most of his career, he simply used his physical dominance to make the right play every time. So let's look at the trajectory of his career, how he developed, and the techniques he employed that led him on this incredible journey where he's producing some of the best numbers of his career while doing it in his 20th season. The longevity alone should make you awestruck, as his minutes played proved how dominating this guy is physically, and that's how his career started. He didn't rely on a jump shot, and thankfully, neither did the league. No one had figured out how valuable the three-point shot was just yet, and he thrived in the mid-range, in the area just in front of the three-point line. He had a robust jab step game, started from a distance we'd call inefficient today, but back then it was where you put your hard hat on and went to work on the assembly line. He had a very good balance between hitting all these long jumpers and taking it hard to the rim for tomahawk jams after blowing by his defender into the middle of the floor. He utilized the gallop a lot, which is a great way to build energy, keep the defense off balance, and then use the outside edge of the back foot to explode into a new direction. He combined the gallop with a number of other dribble moves to give him practically an unfair advantage, as he can show a gallop as if he's going to drive, but then quickly pull up from deep, or use that same footwork and lure defenders up to challenge the shot, opening up the drive right to the basket. Who can forget his crab dribble move, where he'd gather and lift high off the floor, covering a lot of ground before going back up into the shot. It was remarkable to see so many standstill jab step jump shots. These are very hard to generate rhythm with and are also in the area of the floor that is practically off limits nowadays. On his drives, he slowly developed a pretty unique way of finishing around the rim by drifting to his left, twisting his body to stay square to the hoop, and then propelling the ball off the glass with the right hand. This somewhat awkward movement became a staple of his play by 2006-07, and he kept using it for several seasons afterward, as it was a combination of his strength, power, and dexterity to maintain balance and still be able to execute this shot softly off the glass. Based on the poor quality of teammates, it's not surprising that isolating dominated the type of offensive action he used the most. From the start of his career through the 2017-18 season, LeBron's average isolation frequency was 24%, meaning 24 out of every 100 possessions he used were spent isolating against his defender. We don't even see him hunting out better mismatches. He would just take on whomever was guarding him. During the 16-17 season, we started seeing a familiar shot of his, the split step into step back for 3 points. While he was still taking a number of long two-point jump shots, he started adopting more of the modern game into his style, and he proceeded to nail the kind of shots that just demoralized the other team, especially because they not only played the exact defense they wanted to play, but these are the exact shots they wanted LeBron to take. He was so devastating around the rim, it was considered a win by the defense if they can get him to shoot from outside the lane. I still can't get over how LeBron has maintained his excellence so deep into his career, as he's posting some of his best numbers ever. And if you want the chance to win some money on his production or any other NBA player, then you have to head over to UnderdogFantasy.com and check out Pick'em, where you can choose 2 to 5 players, then decide on the over-under for specific stats. It's super easy to set up, and you can win up to 20 times your initial entry fee. If you think LeBron is going to score a ton of points against the Bucks tomorrow night, then get in the action. But it doesn't stop there. You can make it a rival and add players from different teams to make it even more interesting. They've also got drafts where you can compete against me. You think you got what it takes? If you click on the link below and use my promo code BBALL, you'll get a deposit match of up to $100. So if you want a chance to get up to 20 times your money or beat me in a draft, you've got to check out Underdog Fantasy. Use my code BBALL, get up to $100 in matching deposits, and you'll have a better chance at winning money, and you'll see how the fast break was such an unfair advantage for LeBron's whole career. What doesn't quite compute in my mind was that through his first 10 seasons, he averaged 17% in fast break frequency, and since then, as he's gotten older, he's decided to push the ball even more. One reason why he didn't have as many transition possessions is because he played a more hands-off role in the Cavaliers' fast break. It was much more common to see him fill a lane, let a guard bring it up, and then find him for a pass where he could do his utter destruction at the rim. Of course, there are some instances of what we've gotten used to seeing in LA. James bringing the ball up on his own and practically ignoring the defense as he stalks to the rim for an easy shot. But the majority of his first stint in Cleveland was spent sprinting down the court, getting that pass, and completing the play, which means his opportunities were slightly limited since he wasn't controlling the entire break. I don't know what he did to train in 06-07 because he started demonstrating incredible speed, which also makes no sense for a man this size to be the fastest guy on the court. But these are breathtaking as he accelerates past the defense time and again to finish easy buckets that thrilled not just the home crowd, but the entire NBA fan base. By the next season, he had developed the extreme killer instinct, and we'd see from here on out a lot of fast breaks where, despite having the numbers advantage, LeBron was simply not going to pass the ball, and for good reason. There wasn't a single player in the NBA who had any hope of stopping him by himself in the open court. In fact, you needed 3 players to have any hope, and sometimes that didn't matter either. The second he got the ball in the backcourt, the entire defense stiffened in preparation for an attack that they knew they had no hope of stopping. By the last year in Miami, he finally breaks 20% transition frequency as Wade was beginning to break down and the team needed him more and more to create points. With this mindset, you could tell he wasn't going to pass to a teammate, preferring to slice through the defenders as if they weren't even there. In fact, the league had never seen such a combination of speed, strength, height, size, dribbling ability, and finishing skills ever. There was no solution, there was no defender that could handle this, and LeBron made sure everyone was reminded of this fact on a nightly basis. His second stint in Cleveland was more of the same, as the top-heavy roster meant, aside from Kyrie and Kevin Love, there wasn't a better option to pass to on the break than just keeping it himself, entertaining us with explosive highlights that included spins, fades, finger rolls, and insane dunks that had the other team throwing up their hands and wishing they could just go home. In Los Angeles, as he's gotten a little older, he's resorted to more bully ball in transition. And here's where the frequency of fast break possessions for him has taken a pretty big jump. He might not be able to fly over to defenders anymore or beat them down court with speed, so he just uses that battering ram of a body, gets them backpedaling, and uses the contact against them as he steamrolls through defenders and finds a way to get that ball up into the rim with a release point that is oftentimes below it. And this makes sense, as he's isolating the lowest frequency of his career and struggling to make shots there, so he's opted to generate a career high in frequency on the fast break, where he still maintains a big advantage and with a full head of steam can still treat us to tremendous lift and thunderous dunks. By his third year, LeBron had gotten into a good groove with the pick and roll, primarily set on the wing as either a step-up screen towards the baseline where he can leverage his way to the hoop, or as an inside ball screen which gets him middle penetration, and that's where we get a lot of those incredible highlight dunks. Because the defenses preferred to take outside shots, they went underneath most of these screens, but this just let LeBron get a head of steam going to the rim, where we've already seen what happens when this much strength gets going this fast with his lateral agility and leaping ability. In Miami, they ran a lot of the same actions to get him ball screens on the wing. Most of them were step-up screens getting him attacking to the baseline, but he could also snake the dribble by crossing over, and once that happens, he's at the front of the rim where he can just finish the layup off the glass. The next season, teams decided to dare him to shoot it off the pick and roll, and by going underneath and giving him plenty of room, he had a big uptick in three-point frequency. While the efficiency dropped off from his career high 2 seasons before, what he showed us then was that when he got good alignment by turning his feet to the left and then kept the arc of the shot on the lower side, he could make these shots with good consistency. Certainly enough to force defenses to be honest, where he could still attract defenders high enough to blow by them and into the lane for those damaging finishes in the restricted area. Very few mid-range shots came from the pick and roll as he transitioned into the modern game of threes and layups. When he got to the Lakers, he upped his pick and roll frequency even more, to the point where he hit a career high in 2018-19, and most of these were set in the slot between the lane lines, an entirely different attack that allowed him this choice of direction and more space to work with out top. These became the pick and rolls where shooters were spread wide and there was less help to rotate over, and of the 105 players who used at least 150 pick and rolls that year, he ranked 16th in efficiency, as teams couldn't figure out how to defend an action in the middle of the floor where LeBron could use the screen and get an advantage. It was a perfect mix of spacing, movement, and basketball IQ from one of the smartest players ever to play the game. As we move towards the end of his career, it's worth spotlighting some of the greatest shots he's made. Who can forget his continuous torture of Toronto with that pet shot of his where he lifts off the left foot, drifts to the left, twists and shoots with the right hand soft off the glass, which put his team up 3-0. While he never used cuts off the ball much in his career, this beauty of a backscreen and perfect lob enabled LeBron to demonstrate what we've been talking about: power, explosion, lift, balance, and most of all, viciousness. This ISO out top in the playoffs culminated in an amazing performance that got his team past the proud Pistons and into his first finals appearance, blowing through 3 defenders and gathering late to jump off the 1, getting him to the rim for the game winner. I love this game winner as he attacks on the catch. Paul George never knew what hit him, and it completely changed the tone of this series, which easily could have been won by the Pacers had they taken this game. There have been times throughout his career where it looks like his teams were finished, cooked, his legacy tarnished, and then he'd do something ridiculous. The Bulls must have felt pretty good about their chances in overtime at home to take a 3-1 lead over the Cavs. But then LeBron changed the play after the huddle and somehow hopped into this fadeaway corner shot at the buzzer that completely ripped the hearts out of every Chicago fan, and they never lost again in this series. We can never say a record is unbreakable, but it's hard to imagine someone coming straight out of high school be as durable as LeBron has been for just about his whole career and be as dominant as this for enough seasons that they can catch a record that James will continue to add on to for at least another year or two. I feel confident that if Kareem's record stood for 39 years, he might have to double that until someone else comes along and scores more than the King. In last night's record-breaking game, he put the full shot profile on display. He gave us the ISO split-foot step back from three-point land to start off his scoring spree. We've got plenty of transition buckets, as is his MO in LA, to the tune of a career high in transition frequency as he looks to bully the younger and smaller players into submission. He got the ball screen in between the slots, gave us a nice Euro step to draw the foul, and a nice finish with his underappreciated left hand. He got really hot from behind the arc as OKC opted to give him plenty of space and dare him to shoot it as he found an opening in the pick and roll, got the spot up when his man foolishly helps one pass away, noticed the lower arc and the perfect make, and he was really feeling it with a somewhat rare pull-up from way downtown, which got him under double digits from the scoring record. One thing that was different was his action as the roll man, something he'd never really done much at all throughout his career. But as his physical abilities transition towards the end of the road, it just makes sense to get him setting screens and rolling to the hoop. And it was completely fitting, poetic even, that he got an isolation on that right elbow, the place he did so much damage when he took his talents to South Beach. And he got to combine some of his bully ball shoulder ramming with the supreme skill of the jerk leg fadeaway, and there was never a doubt the moment it left his hand.